And then you think about if that's the case, then there's a connection between the Willie Lynch letter, whether you believe it or not, and slave patrols. And so I wanted to make sure that the whole entire history was in the book, whether you believe it or not, that's up to you. But I wanted to make sure all the history was there so people could look at it, research it, think about it, and say, okay, yeah, I believe that policing is an extension of what occurred in the Willie Lynch letter, and it's still happening today. And now, um, folks, white people are starting to get killed.
Welcome to Surviving and Thriving, the Black Experience. Here, we talk about the real adversities Black Americans face while navigating corporate spaces, educational institutions, and the justice system. We name the pressures, expose the barriers, and share strategies to help you adapt, endure, and move forward while protecting your peace. So, let's get into today's discussion. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Surviving and Thriving, the Black Experience. And I am CandiceRennee. You made a really good point, and that reminds me of I did not watch the documentary on Netflix yet, but I did actually get to see the creator of Made. Have you heard of Made before?
I have not.
So Made is about a woman who she was a white woman who in fact had to clean homes. And she cleaned different types of home of affluent people and things as such. And she talked about her identity pretty much not being there because she wasn't even able to leave like a footprint in these homes and things as such. The reason why it connects to this is that she talked about the vulnerability um, of having to put herself on full display and thinking of these stories, thinking of the things that she had to go through in the different homes, and how some of these people that she cleans their actual homes and things and such, they don't even know her outside. They would
Oh,
see
yeah.
her at a store. Little did they know, like while she's going and cleaning these multi-billion-dollar or million-dollar mansions and things as such, her and her baby was living inside of a car and they were having peanut butter and jelly sandwiches.
Oh, okay.
And her connecting piece with her actual story that like stood out is the first page of the book says, "My 2-year-old learned how to walk in a homeless shelter." And it like
Wow.
captivates people. And the reason why I bring her up in regard, I forgot what her name is. I will put it in the actual in the description and it'll be listed on here. The connecting piece to that was that she paid respect, and I say homage, and understanding her privilege of being a white woman. And I was really surprised that she did that during that conference that I was at where I saw her on the screen, because she
Mhm.
said my story is, she didn't say it was nothing compared to other stories. She said, but I understand that I got the affluence and the support and things as such that I received for this to be on Netflix because I'm a white woman. She's like,
Mhm.
because my story in regards to me and my baby eating, peanut butter sandwiches in a car, there are several black women who can't even get assistance. And she
Right.
like brought recognition to that. She's like, I had the opportunity to go to school and have people believe in me and things as such. She's like, but I do also understand, again, it was because I was a white woman. And so I appreciated her being able to at least to put the words out there in regards to thoughts as well too. So I appreciated that with her. But that goes to show in regards to that vulnerability that you were talking about in regards to creating an autobiography, because you can tell that she was choking up during some of it while she was reliving the things that she was in fact having to go through and what she had in
Yeah.
fact overcame at that time. So
Yeah.
that I draw that connection to that.
And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good.
Um, in many Black households, some stories stay unspoken. So, what made you decide that this story needed to be told, even if it challenged that silence?
So I'll it's almost like a reiteration, but I did it for me. I was walking around here. I was a damaged individual. And when I say damaged, I mean I'm thinking a lot of black men go through what I went through. And, you know, I'm not going to say it's not their fault because my ideology is after about 19, 20, whatever happens, you're responsible, man. This is a time where you need to take life into your own hands and figure out what you need to figure out. Okay. So if you're 30 saying, oh yeah, I was impacted as a child, I'm not buying it. So it was like I said, for me, it was a lot of it was trying to understand why I was the person I was. You know, embarrassingly, I come from the hood just like a lot of folks, and I don't mean that part I'm not embarrassed about, but the part that I'm embarrassed about is that when I had girlfriends, I wouldn't even hold their hand because I was so jaded. I was worried about how I was gonna look to everybody else. That's crazy, man. Something was wrong with me. And then that's just a small example of a lot of the things I had to mentally correct in my process. So the book selfishly was and personally was about me trying to understand me better and where I came from, why I'm like I am, and get some tools and seeds and information on possibly how I could fix them.
Okay. That's interesting. That you mentioned that like you felt jaded and that you felt that like I wouldn't even like hold a young lady's hand because stereotypically that's not what like men be doing, right? Or
Right,
maybe it's not something that was something that you saw all the time in regards to like that connection and things as such. And I think it's so I've seen young men in the store with their young ladies, and it's not how it's not how it used to be
right, right,
in
right,
regards to like it's okay to be in love. It's okay to
right,
hold someone's hand. It's
right,
okay to snuggle, walk behind
right,
them. Like I grew up with that. So like
right,
so
right,
it's like,
right,
but you see it now and it's like in the phone or it's just not that type of connection and stuff like that. So it's not too far-fetched to understand like the a certain type of mindset, especially when you haven't even seen it and or what's in fact being taught or what's being shown in front of you.
This is the $10,000 question.
All right.
If your woman's love language is words of affirmation and affection, and it costs nothing, why
I
won't you give it?
guess
Why
what?
won't a
I'm
man?
guilty. I's the pappy.
No, just answer that question.
I's the pappy.
Why? Why won't you give it?
Because we weren't taught to do it. And I'm gonna tell you something. And sometimes when we've done it, because of previous situations, unresolved hurt
Okay.
on both sides. You did it, and it didn't work. Somebody just ran you and took you down through there, as they say now. Took them down through there. Look, so what we do, we'll do that, but you don't want to show too much because you might become vulnerable.
But shouldn't you be with your wife?
See, you're supposed to be until they weaponize themselves with your vulnerability.
And so let me just pause right there because that was another piece you hit on it already. The other thing was no examples, right? I didn't have those examples. In the household I grew up in, there was no, that type of love and connection and feelings, and we did everything we could to stay away from all of that. And
Yep.
so I didn't see that with my parents. I didn't see
Mhm.
that with my older brothers. I didn't see that with my aunts and uncles, nobody. So the exposure wasn't there. And so that's another piece of why I ended up being who I was.
That makes sense. Because it's something that's not necessarily taught within the household of like how to show affection,
Right,
like and how to receive affection. Those aren't conversations that just take place. People are just supposed to know, and typically people don't.
right.
Um, your book shows different paths within the same environment, right? So how do you think, or yeah, how do you think about being a black, or what do you think about being a black man that shaped the way you understand those choices and their consequences?
So I'll say that, everybody's an individual. You could I'll just take my case. There was three boys. Um, with us three, you could give us all, I don't know, let's say a bowl of food, and all three of us could say it tastes differently.
Hmm.
So that's the same thing I look at in terms of how socially you can get impacted from events. If an event happens, you all get impacted differently. When in my family, when events happened, I know my oldest brother, he would say, yeah, y'all keep that over there. But if you come over here, you're gonna have a bad time. My middle brother was like, oh, that's happening. Let me go get involved. And then me, I'm looking at it like I'm staying the hell away from that. And so we all dealt with things in our own particular way. And
Mhm.
so I think that is that's something that people have to take into account when when they say the words family. Everybody's not the same.
Mhm. That makes a lot of sense because I just actually had talked to him, Grover. He talked about how his mother raised it's 11 of them. So he said his
Oh,
mother
wow.
raised, it's a lot, how his mother raised and disciplined each of them differently because they all required something different. So like you
Right.
said, that each y'all can eat the same thing and have a different taste bud, and or in fact have it to where there's a situation going on that might be like drama or something. One's gonna flee, one's gonna be right in the middle, the other's gonna be like, what is this? What's going on? Maybe be inquisitive about what's going on and things as such. But it's, yeah. When someone from a similar background reads your story and sees himself in it, what do you hope it shifts in them mentally, emotionally, and or generationally? And then I'm going to expand on that as well. What part do you think is the most prevalent? I know it's an amazing book, but what is something that you definitively want someone to take from it?
Um, so I'll deal with the first part first. Got a bad memory, you might have to ask
Oh,
again.
that's okay.
But the first part, you know, I wrote this book because I wanted people to know that, you know, even in your worst space, the takeaway is that even in your worst space, that you can there's ways to recover. We all come from different pathways and levels of life, and there's always a way to recover. I mean, we hear about, I mean, just as an example, right? We got billionaires today that we all know of, Jay-Z, right? Came from the projects. So, okay, granted, he was blessed with a certain talent, but the point is that's irrelevant. The point is that there's a pathway. You just got to find yours. And so when people read my book, I want them to know that even though I was in a particular situation, I'm not there now. There's a way to get out. There's always hope. Don't lose faith. Don't give up. Also, I want you to know that there's a community out here. There's a community of people just like you. You're not the only one. And so, when you are in certain situations like that, if you can find your community, you can get information. You can move by the circumstances you're dealing with. It's so besides it being a book, I wanted it to be a learning space so that people would understand that you don't have to just take what's given to you. You can change it. You can modify it. Make it what you want it to be.
Okay. You talked about finding that community. Can you give some ideas, strategies in regards to how to find that community?
Oh yeah. So um I had a difficult time finding that community because uh you know the space I was in, I had limited resources, I had limited contact, everything was controlled. So I didn't find my community till I was about, I'll say about 25. Once I got 25, I was in college, and now I was able to um decide who I wanted to bond with, decide who I wanted to link up with. So I had a difficult time because I bounced from friend to friend to friend to friend because I was looking for something that would align with where I wanted to be, with the values that I had and where I wanted to be. I eventually found that. I found a group of friends who they were into education, they didn't sell drugs. I had a bunch of drug selling friends, but that wasn't where I wanted to go. So
One thing I learned way too late in life is surrounding yourself with like minded individuals. You ever see that quote that goes, "People aren't bragging, they're just excited, and you're just jealous"? And here's where this is key. If they had their own stuff going on, they would understand the excitement. But it goes even deeper, and I'm going to break this down into 3 different things. Number 1, you need to have the same kind of life goals to an extent. For example, I'm a person that is very ambitious and I'm really into self-improvement. So exciting news for me is going to be progress in my life, whether that be gym progress, progress in my career, or whatever it might be. To a person that's not into self-improvement, that's bragging. But to a person that is also into self-improvement, it's wait, tell me more.
While I hung out with them, I knew that wasn't my final destiny. But when I found my group, these were the people. They didn't sell drugs. They were trying to further the education. They were intelligent and logical. And I was like, hey, based on the seeds of my grandmother, what my grandmother told me, these are the people I'm supposed to be with. So I hung out with them, and it was just it was I call it luck. I call everything that I do luck because I don't know any other way how I ran into these people. It was just happenstance. But I ran into them, and eventually, as you go through life, you'll find the people that are like you, that are mirror images of you. Those are the ones you want to align with.
Absolutely. You talk, and I promise no curveballs, but I gotta throw this one real quick because I love how this conversation is going, how this discussion is going. You talked about logic, right? I have a question. So, do you think that logic changed based upon environment and based upon the space that you're in and your circumstance? Because while you were saying that, I was like, I feel like that's a transition that takes place in life, right? You have your friends, I call your cronies, your homies, whatever, that you grow up with, depending on your environment and your space that you're within. And then to a certain extent, it seems like many people outgrow that space. What do you think hinders the other people in regards to why they can't see that logical change?
Oh yeah. So first I'll say this, one of the bases that I follow in life, it's similar to a jail environment. People might not be able to map that, but I'm gonna map it for you right now. Because in prison, there's certain rules that you must follow. You want to survive, there's certain rules you must follow. So while they may seem you know, mean and grotesque to the prisoner, their prisoner's reality. So that's a pathway that they have to follow. So with me, I had to figure out, okay, what's my pathway that I was going to follow? How was I going to figure out where I wanted to go and what I wanted to do? And the best way I did that was, believe it or not, through pain. I saw a lot of pain growing up, and I was an observer of that pain. I saw people get stabbed, I saw people get shot, I saw people get killed, all of that. And as an observer of seeing that, one thing that would cross my mind was, yeah, that don't look too fun. I don't think I want to be involved with that. And so I started through the process of elimination, eliminating those spaces. And eventually I found the spaces where I wanted to be and where I started to thrive. Hopefully that answered the question.
No, you absolutely did. That actually takes us right into the good, the bad, and the blue. So I find it interesting that you are, in fact, a Black man who has written about policing, racism, and power. So, what responsibility did you feel, if any, in telling the stories from your perspective?
Okay, yeah. So um, let me give you the genesis of the book because that is going to answer this question. The genesis of the book was one day I was just sitting on my couch, and all of a sudden, this was around 2004, 2006. And all of a sudden, I started seeing a rash of killings of Black teens, men, women, children, grandmothers, grandfathers. Everybody was game. And I'm sitting on every time I come home from work, another person was killed. And I was like, man, what the hell is going on? I don't recall seeing this. During the time when Rodney King got beat up, you see that every now and then. So one of the things I realized was that it wasn't happening. It was just we weren't getting the information. So and we only got lucky with Rodney King because somebody had what they call a camcorder at the time. So nowadays we got surveillance everywhere you go. So now we started seeing it, right? And I'm like, man, this is too much. What is going on here? So I started doing some research and finding out that there's a problem with policing in America. And the main problem is one of the main problems is that Black people are getting killed for ridiculous reasons. Something as minor as stole a candy bar. You can't steal a candy bar and not get killed. That's ridiculous, folks. You're not supposed to get killed for stealing a candy bar or stealing a bike or whatever it is. You know, so once I realized there was a problem, I was like, okay, I got to do some research to try to figure out what's going on, and it was really bothering me. And then the straw that really broke the camel's back. I don't know if you guys remember, but you'll remember where there were a lot of killings, and all of a sudden, Colin Kaepernick took a knee in the NFL. And when he took that knee in the NFL, I was like, yeah, this is bigger than I could ever imagine. I mean, it's gone corporate. NFL is a corporate entity. It's gone corporate, and there's people up there even acknowledging what's going on. And so I'm not, I don't have a lot of money. I'm not an affluent person, but I said I need to do something. And the thing I decided to do was document. Because
Mhm.
one thing for sure, we were just talking about the Willie Lynch letter, and one thing is for sure is that we don't accurately get document. If we rely on somebody else to document our stories,
Mhm.
that's how they're going to get told.
Mhm.
So I decided, let me document this story based on these incidents based on my own research. So I took it upon myself to start doing research on why these things were occurring.
Did you ever wonder why they were so intent on erasing Black history? Book bans, curriculum changes, plaque removal. Well, this is why. Right now, this is it. As quiet as it's kept, they weren't erasing Black history to take something away from Black people. We've always had to be the sole preservers and protectors of our own history. They were erasing Black history to take something away from everyone else. You see, Black history is America's clearest record of sustained resistance to fascism. It is the most uniquely American blueprint for how to beat fascism generation after generation. From Mose, Florida to Mound Bayou in Mississippi to Lowndes County in Alabama, Black history can tell you point by point not just what happened, but what's going to happen and how to get out of it. If you feel like you don't know what to do right now, that's valid. But let me recommend a few good places to start. Books, podcasts, documentaries. And of course, as always, I'll be sharing that history right here, so be sure to like and follow for more.
And if you want me to get into a process, I will, or I'll wait.
No,
Let
you
me
can go right into the process. 'Cause,
Okay.
you
And
brought up
so,
Willie Lynch as well, so we're gonna go back to that because I have a question about that too. But yeah, go
okay.
ahead.
So the process that I used was that, um, because I don't have contacts with newspapers and all of this, I decided I need to come up with a process. I'm going to write a book. I want it to be as accurate as possible. So my process was that I would find three sources, right? Let's say a news source, let's say a article, and let's say a social media source, for example. And I would take those three, compare them to each other, and take the two that were the most accurate because I wasn't at the scene. I don't have another way to get information. So I said, I'll take the two that are the most accurate from different sources. One was, like, for example, Atlanta Black Star. I don't think Black people are going to skew the way a Black person was killed. It could happen, but, what are the chances? I know they're lower than me watching, for example, Fox News, which I didn't get a source from Fox News, but just
Mm.
as an example, there was some other sources that I used. So I took three of those sources, and I decided the two that are the closest are what I'm going to put in the book, since I can't sit down with the victim families to find out exactly what happened, because I would believe the victim families over, let's say, law enforcement, for example.
Right.
So that's the process I took in order to get the information.
Okay. So you had mentioned Willie Lynch, and I correlate that in regards to the policing that we in fact see, and or in some cases we're able to see with not camcorders anymore, but with video iPhones and things as such. So can you break down? I know you said you mentioned this in your book as well too, the connection in regards to Willie Lynch and policing.
Oh yeah. Um, So first of all, let me just say this as a caveat because I know there's an ongoing conversation about whether people believe the Willie Lynch letter or not. If you do, you're in my boat. If you don't, you're not in my boat, but it's okay. And what I'll say is this. Um, regardless, I looked at it this way, regardless if it was true or not, the events within the letter are accurate. They happened. Black people were dealt with in a certain way. And if you read this letter, you're going to see those ways in there, regardless if it was written before or after. I don't really care. The fact is that the events in the letter are accurate, they've occurred. And so the one thing I wanted to do was, with regard to policing, was I put it in the book because it is, let's say, policing before policing actually even started, because it was subjugation of Black people. And policing, for all intents and purposes, is subjugation of Black people. So there, that right there was the parallel for me. And so I wanted to see what happened within the Willie Lynch letter. You have to do research before you can make your own determinations. Don't take my word, go do your own research. And then I wanted to see the history of policing. So I did a research on the history of policing. And I was like, man, this is this is almost in full alignment on how certain things were handled. Because if you don't know, if you read my book, I have a little bit of the history in there, but I'm sure there's books that are completely focused on history. But historically, policing comes from slave catchers and slave patrols.
You have no idea how the police in the United States formed into what it is today. The first modernized police force in the U.S., the Boston Police Department in 1838, was created primarily to protect property, maintain social order, and serve the interests of the business elites. While it was publicly funded and framed as a public good, its actual function was shaped by the fears of wealthy, fears of labor strikes, immigrant populations, and working class unrest disrupting the economy. But let's be clear, this was never about public safety for everyone. Modern policing in the US was built on older systems of control. Before Boston, there were slave overseers whose job it was to surveil, punish, and discipline enslaved Black people. Then came slave patrols, armed groups hunting down runaways and crushing rebellion. After emancipation, slave catchers became police, and their mission barely changed. What we call law and order today was born out of the need to control marginalized people, especially Black folks, and maintain economic hierarchies, not ensure justice. Even the phrase protect and serve is a myth. The Supreme Court has ruled multiple times that police have no legal duty to protect individuals. What they do protect is property.
And then you think about, if that's the case, then there's a connection between the Willie Lynch letter, whether you believe it or not, and slave patrols. And so I wanted to make sure that the whole entire history was in the book. Whether you believe it or not, that's up to you. But I wanted to make sure all the history was there so people could look at it, research it, think about it, and say, okay, yeah, I believe that policing is an extension of what occurred in the Willie Lynch letter, and it's still happening today. And now, folks, white people are starting to get killed. And we're seeing it on TV. We're seeing it in spaces where we don't expect to see it. And now it's really getting visibility. Before that, we wouldn't see it that much. We'd see, most of the time you see on TV, you see a Black person being killed by police. You hear about it all the time. And then it demonized the Black person. But now it's white people getting killed. They're getting killed by ICE. They're getting killed for circumstances similar to ours. And it's coming full circle. And I'll leave it at that.
I thank you for sharing that. I think so for those who don't know what the Willie Lynch letter is, I'm going to try to summarize a piece of it. Or at least the part that stood out of the brutality in that entire letter. Uh, as a Black woman, being able to read a document that states essentially the dehumanization of Black men, the breaking of the Black man spirit, um, the harm that is subjected in front of Black women intentionally to, in fact, have it to where a Black man is not seen as a head of anything, is essentially what I, in fact, received from that letter. And is it not surprising that we see this now, to where women, or Black women to a certain extent, well, not all, so I don't want to say anything in regards to all, but is it not surprising now that we see it to where Black women feel that they have to, in fact, be the head of a home? And why are they not, in fact, understanding the strength that is supposed to come from a Black man? If one snippet that I can remember, if I'm trying to remember exactly what was on it, because I tried to definitely take it out of my mind as soon as I read it, but I feel that everyone has to, in fact, read that letter to understand a psyche that was trying to be embedded into Black men and women. Essentially, uh, a person, let's do it this way, a person would, in fact, take the strongest of the Black slaves and essentially put them in front, tar, feather, and virtually kill them in front of everyone within that, in fact, population of Black people, so that they understood this is what happens if you ever try to uprise. And Mo, let me know if I'm wrong, if I'm saying
Oh,
anything incorrect.
100% correct.
This
100%
was
correct.
this was in fact done to in fact break the psyche, the spirit of African Americans at that time. And then what would essentially happen is the next Black man who would come up would never raise a hand, go to fight, go to do anything um, to displease their masters, because they were able to see what happened to the man before them. And that woman would then see that Black man as weak. Mo, am I wrong?
No, that's 100% correct. And I
That's
would
just
like to
trying to
add,
summarize it in
no,
a
that's
you can't even
100%
make it
correct.
pretty. It's the only way to put it as what it is.
My whole message point is for us. Now, when you talk about slavery, right? We talk about systemic racism. We talk about the Willie Lynch letter, right? We talk about, the black man is God, right? We talk about, the greatest soldier in a white man's army being the Black woman, and the Black woman being the pawn. And then they figured out early on through slavery that because they were killing us, right? But they figured out if we get the Black woman, or we get the whole joint.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
You know why? Go ahead. I want you to explain why, because I think it needs.
but I get to that, but I want to finish the messaging point, right? I like to keep it cohesive for myself. I might forget a lot of information in here. So, what they did was they made the Black woman hyper masculine, right? And they made you and me as we're studs. We're gonna be in the field. We're handy, right? And I think, and I'm trying to kind of connect it all because he made a valid point, right? The government empowered Black women to strategically move the position of power from the Black man.
Remove the power from the Black man.
Right?
Yeah.
So now the Black woman in that instance becomes drunk off this power, and then she has a disdain for the Black man, and then it becomes perpetuated over generations. So with slavery, what they did was they take us, they call it buck breaking. They do it, gang bang us, rape us, cut our balls off in front of the Black woman. And then before they kill the Black man, they'll make the Black, after they did him dusty, they'll chain him up, right? Look, they'll chain him up, right? They'll chain him up, beat him within an inch of his life, and then unchain him, and then rape and do that to the woman. And then the woman is looking at the man like, come save me. But mentally he's dead. He doesn't even have no fight in him. So now she doesn't even have no respect for you. You fast forward to this generation, Black women don't respect Black men at all. And when you understand that, and it's a lot, so I'm trying to make it like simple, right? Because a lot of people, they respond emotionally and not intellectually. And there's no empathy for Black men. There's no sympathy for Black men. You don't even love Black men. You don't even know who we are. You don't give a fuck about us. Pay my bills, eat my ass. And that's it.
Thanks.
Okay. So it's important that Black men understand what was done to us and why it was done to us. It's also important that Black women understand their position in systematic racism and how they're being utilized to destroy their whole family and their whole community and whole generation.
We're not here for pretty today. We're here
Right.
for the truth.
Right, exactly. I can't. I'm like, that's the best way I can put it.
And so the other thing I'll add, I don't know. Okay, are you done? I was gonna
Oh
add
yeah,
something.
no, go right ahead. Yep.
Okay, the other thing I'll add is this. we don't have, I know we don't have no time on this program and it ain't pretty. Like we said, we ain't here for pretty,
Mhm.
but here's the the psychological operation associated with that. So the white man subjugates the black man, and guess what the black man does? Subjugates the black woman. And so that's why our relationships are like they are today. Because if I'm a black man and you took my whole masculinity, and now I got who I got to take that out on. So now I'm with this woman, I'm gonna take it out on her. And so this is part of the reason why this is a psychological operation on why we have to deal with broken homes today. So it goes into that as well. That's not in my book. That's not part of it, but it's just something I wanted to mention.
I think I've officially decided what the title is going to be, which is the psychology of the broken home. Yep.
Yeah.
There we go. um, I appreciate you breaking it down. I definitely would love for us to touch base on that as well and have that actual conversation to go more in depth because that can be its own conversation, its own discussion. Like we can go way back into history in
Forever.
regards to that and what we see now in regards to the actual home structures, relationship structures, friendships, things, all environments. We could talk about all that stuff. Um, but let's go back directly to your book, The Good, the Bad, and the Blue. When you chose to write about these topics, did you approach it more from a space of personal experience, observation, or desire to challenge how these issues were usually discussed? And I know you talked about Rodney King, and I know you talked that you did your structure or your format of mapping was the three, the article, hold on, I wrote that down. The article, the social media source, and the television. Um, but yeah, can you touch base a little bit on that? Of was this more or less like were you seeing this happen directly in your own experience, like people around you as well, or was it literally just in regards to the known names in the tabloids? Is what I will say.
So I think a big part of it was that um, it came to me because
Okay.
I'm sitting on I was a football fan. I don't watch football anymore. Admittedly, I don't watch football anymore, but I was a big football fan. NFL, I loved it. Super Bowl, I loved it. And so it came to me by way of that program because Colin Kaepernick took a knee and all of a sudden there's this big hoopla within football associated with killing of, black people. And also the news channels, every time I turned the station on, another black person was getting killed. So that came to me and I could not sit there and ignore that. So it was a call to action for me to do something. And the only thing I could think of doing was writing a book because I don't know any influential figures in society. I don't, and I was just like, and I don't trust that the information that the events that were going on were going to be accurately captured. I trust myself. So I went, did the research, and wrote the book based on the research and information I was able to gather. Um, I couldn't get everything because I can't talk to the families directly, but from what I was able to get, I feel like the information was at least partially accurate. And now that I'm doing what I call my read-alongs. So these are read-along discussions where a group gets together, we read my book, and we have discussions. Now that I'm doing that, and I include some of the victim families, um, I'm getting a very good clue that everything that I've done was accurate.
You are a blessing. I'm so sorry. I'm about to say you are a blessing because of what you do. I will say, Harper, no. You are a blessing because when it comes to, I'm going to use the word tabloid very lightly, but I'm going to say it in regards to once these names are on the media or in the media and things of such, you know who they are. You see their faces, you see the tears, you see all these things, and all of a sudden they're gone, and then
Yep.
it's replaced with another story, in regards to another face that you're having to see, and then they're gone. And so it kind of desensitizes you. I think it does that as it's supposed to. It desensitizes you in regards to the loss and things such that people are in fact experiencing until it happens at your front door or it happens with your family. And I think that you are a blessing because you keep their names relevant. It is documented in regards to your book. You're doing, as you said, discussions in regards to this time, this space. This is what happens. You're having the families to, in fact, come in. The ones who are able to have that the wound never closes. So having them to, in fact, come and let you know a little bit more in depth of what that situation is, and get to know that person besides a 2 minute segment on whatever news station. You're
Right.
able to see their pictures of them growing up, the aspirations that that family had for that child or that man or that daughter or that father, or whoever that person is. In fact, you're able to see their upbringing and things as such, because a lot of the times these are not. I want to say this correctly, so let me take a second. I am not saying that if someone comes from an underserved community, a disenfranchised community, the hood, the ghetto, the slums, whatever, that they deserve any type of outcome that happens in regards to police brutality or anything to that extent. But what I'm saying is that quite often, when things like this happen, these babies are coming from good homes. These babies are coming from homes that are filled with love. These babies are coming home, or these adults, if they're men, are coming from their wives. They're leaving, they're leaving their homes, and these situations are in fact taking place. And or if we go into the situation, I want to say his name was Alton Sterling, if I get his name correctly. I
That's correct.
believe, and the gentleman who was in fact outside trying to make a living, right?
Eric
Uh,
Garner.
oh, sorry, Eric Garner. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I did say it wrong. Yes, Eric Garner. I'm sorry. The man who was outside trying to, in fact, make an actual living. So it's really, really sad when these things in fact take place. But I'm very, very pleased and appreciative of you that you choose to take something that is so heart-wrenching, and you choose to shed light to it versus to act like it doesn't exist. So I did want to make sure I said that. Um, what is the hardest truth from you that you wrote in this book, and the one that made you pause and really think about how it should be received?
This is for the good, the bad, and the blue.
Yes.
Um, so I'll say I can't really say that there was any one point. I think holistically, the book as a whole, um, it really put me on notice that law enforcement is so this is the main this is one of the main takeaways I have from the book, which is basic, but I don't think everybody understands. Law enforcement is not in place to save lives. They're not there to save lives. That's not their purpose. Their purpose is to go into action when a crime has been committed. So that's when they show up. That's when they do their job. They don't save lives. Those the old tropes from elementary school where you see the lady calling the police officer because a cat's in a tree.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, that don't happen, folks. Somebody got to get stabbed, somebody got to get killed. There's got to be a problem. Somebody got to call 911 with an issue, and then the police show up. Okay, but they don't show up. It's not a program where you can call them for help. I can't tell you how many times I've seen um, people who don't really understand this concept call the police officers because let's say maybe their child is having a epileptic attack or maybe some kind of psychological issue, and the cops show up, and next thing you know, the child is dead. And so that is because they're not trained, qualified, or certified to handle those types of circumstances. You call them when there's a life or death situation afoot, or um, just before it's about to happen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But just know this: if you call them for help, you may not get that in the way that you think you want to receive it.
Mm-hmm. You know what's interesting? So, I more or less live in a suburb, and I have not, and I thank God for that. I'm brown, I'm knock on wood. So, I have not uh, had a situation to where I've run across an officer who has not necessarily been pleasant. Let me say this, has not been pleasant and or professional. But it's the craziest thing of when I see it and I see these officers that are literally wearing the badge, literally wearing the uniform, and they don't know how to, some of them don't know how to, a lot of them, let's say that. No, I'll say some. Don't know how to talk to people, don't know how to de-escalate situations, don't have the capacity to understand the crisis that the person is in. And it makes a lot of sense in regards to what you said. Like, they're not there to do that. That's not necessarily what they're there for. And it's just really, really interesting to in fact understand that. Um,
Can I add something?
mhm,
Yeah. So, one of the things I wanted to say was that um, you can blame the police if you want, but in some cases it is their fault. But here's the thing: it's the structure's fault because most when a police officer gets a call, they're going in a certain mode. Okay, they deal with dangerous people, they deal with dead people, they deal with circumstances where people might have a knife, a gun, or whatever. Okay,
mhm,
so to try to de-escalate that to helping a lady get a cat out of a tree, it's not going to happen, folks.
mhm,
You get a certain mindset if you have to deal with those worst case situations. You usually are slanted to that situation, and when there's a call that goes out where you need to go help somebody, you're gonna strictly go to that mode. For
mhm,
the most part, you go to that mode. And so it's I'll say part of the reasoning that we're dealing with the circumstances is structural. Because you're telling somebody, hey, you need to flex through all of these different psychological stages based on the call you get. And some officers can't do that. And I'm sure they haven't been assessed to determine if they can do that. Some can, but not all. And so the ones that can't, those are the ones that where somebody's having a psychological event, they show up and that person ends up dying. And so I just wanted to mention that part of it is the way the structure is set up also.
Why does America send armed police officers to a mental health crisis instead of someone trained to help? Alex got a call from his sister last spring. Her son was having a panic attack, hyperventilating, not violent, not dangerous, scared. She did not know what else to do. So she called 911. In most of America, when you call 911 for a mental health crisis, the default response is a police officer. Not a paramedic trained in crisis intervention, not a mental health clinician, a police officer with a gun trained primarily in law enforcement. Here's what that response actually looks like across the country. A person experiencing a mental health crisis is 16 times more likely to be killed during a police encounter than someone who is not. 16 times. Not because police officers want this outcome, because they are not trained for it. A few hours of crisis training buried inside a 6-month police academy curriculum is not the same as years of clinical education in de-escalation and psychiatric emergency response.
Here's what's coming up next on Surviving and Thriving, the Black Experience.
What the solution I'm about to say will prevent or minimize both of those. And that is, see your cell phone? What you got to do with your cell phone in order to make it work? You got to put in the passcode, right? So the same technology and same idea would be fingerprint ID. In order to get your gun to work, in order to get your taser to work, you need to somehow use fingerprint ID or that gun is not going to fire. All right. You want the right person using that gun for the right purpose.